Hi, my name is Alexia Ticknen, and this is my final assignment for this sociology class. For Module 1, we learned how to recognize social forces. Um, some of the history of that is that sociology was first kind of recognized by Max Wallin in the early ages. At the time, there was no term for it. There was no actual word to define what sociology was. So the term was actually invented by Emmanuel Joseph and then was reinvented kind of by Auguste Comte. Some of the founders were Emile Durkheim, Max Weber, and Karl Marx. Uh, they are the main kind of found, they kind of made it more popular almost. We learned that structural functionalism is a society functioning as a whole because of all of the individuals interacting together. Um, Conflict theory is the social differences and differences in power being caused by inequalities. Symbolic interactionalism is the one-on-one communications between people in a society. Karl Marx believed inequalities in the workplace caused workers to revolt and caused the collapse of communism. Emile Durkheim believed that you can study healthy societies and that suicide is caused by social structures such as like religion and not actual psychological and mental health issues. Max Weber did not think that you could use the scientific method in sociology for accurate data since each situation in sociology is different and there's no set rule to how things work. In Module 2, we learned about the scientific method in sociology, and it goes that you ask a question, then you research answers that have already been found, you formulate a hypothesis, design and conduct a study, and then you find the conclusion and report the results for somebody else in the future who also wants to research it. Interpretive society was made by Max Weber, who centers in importance of meanings and actions when researching social trends. A positive perspective is actions that create a positive change in society. Um, some of the research methods used are surveys, field research, experiments, and secondary data analysis. Culture is the shared beliefs, values, and practices of a society. And ethnocentrism is thinking that your own personal culture is better than somebody else's. Cultural relativism is looking at a culture on its own and not judging it based on the culture you grew up around. In Module 3, we saw that roles are behaviors that represent one's personal status. And a status is the responsibility that somebody has based off of their roles. And statuses are either achieved, which is something that as you go through life, you accomplish, or they're ascribed, which means that you get the status when you were born. A role strain is when there are too many different requirements in a certain role and it is hard to live up to that role. And a role conflict is conflicts between multiple roles that you have. Self concept is how you interpret your own behaviors from your roles. And Mead believed we developed our sense of self through socialization. In Module 4, we learned about in-groups and out-groups. In-groups is the group that you belong to, and an out-group is a group that you don't really fit into. A reference group is a measurement or a group that you compare yourself to. In groups, there are dyads, which is a 2-member group, and a triad, which is a 3-member group. Typically in triads, there is a lot of conflict, and it typically results in a dyad. But to have a group, you have to at least have a dyad. There are different types of leaders in the groups. There's an instrumental leader, which is a leader that is goal oriented, and there's always a goal in their mind when they're doing something. An expressive leader will look more at the emotional and health and all of that of the group. Then there are democratic leaders who encourage everybody in the group to participate to get to a certain goal. A laissez-faire leader is very hands-off and lets the group take over and do what they believe is best. And then an authoritarian leader rules over the entire group. It's almost like an example of Hitler, who was able to convince his group to do something very heinous towards other people. Then there are different types of organizations. There's a formal organization, which is kind of like schools and government and healthcare facilities, stuff like that, which are all types of bureaucracies, which is the ideal formal organization. In Module 5, we learned about deviance in crime. Deviance is a violation of a social norm, whether it is a rule or just something that people follow because it has always been the norm. Social control is the enforcement of those social norms. And with those comes positive sanctions, which are rewards for conforming to the norms, or negative sanctions, which are punishments for violating them. And there are different types of punishments. There are informal sanctions where it's not a legal crime, but you're still looked down upon by people in society. And then there are formal sanctions where you break a legalized rule and you get legal punishments, such as jail time or community service, or even the death penalty. Emile Durkheim said that deviance is necessary for society to maintain control. Robert Merton said that achieving goals through non-socially accepted methods is the only way for certain people in the social ranking to achieve goals. Sean McKay said that with weak social ties and social interactions, it makes it hard to enforce those social norms. Karl Marx talked about how power from wealth can cause inequalities in the social systems. Mills talked about how people with more power or more money have the opportunity to define what is actually deviant in society and can sometimes get around actual legal sanctions. Lemert talked about reactions that determine your labels. If somebody tells you all of the time that you're a bad person, you will start to act that way. Sutherland talked about modeling the behaviors of people that you are very close to and starting to act like them. And Heischer, I don't know how to say that, talked about disconnect from society causing in social deviance is something that you are born into, attraction to somebody. Gender roles are society's concepts of how certain sexes should act, and it's almost the social norm of sexes. But your gender identity is a person's own perception of their gender, and it's their personal perception of it. And then sexism is the prejudice that one gender is better than another, such as in the past where males always believed that they were the superior gender over females.